Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Session. Today I bring in Ben Leonard for the first time on a live. I'm sure he's been on one of our podcasts before, Ben. Is that correct? You have been on before, haven't you?
Long time ago. Did a quick 20-minute, half-hour Seller Sessions a couple of years ago. Yeah.
That's right. So without further ado, do you want to give the audience a little bit of background on yourself and where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Ben Leonard. I started an e-commerce business back in 2016. Started it really as a hobby, and it grew arms and legs. It was a brand of fitness equipment. And I can tell you, because this is public domain, that brand was a fitness brand called Beast Gear. At that time, I knew very little, if anything, about e-commerce, and definitely nothing about Amazon or Shopify or any platforms on which to sell. I really needed something to do because I was taking time off from my fitness hobbies because of a heart condition. Started the brand, quickly became apparent that it had potential to really go somewhere, and it did. So I scaled, and after 3.5 years in the business, I sold that business tail end of last year. And at that time, we were generating 7 figures and selling across UK, Europe, Australia, and the Middle East.
Yeah, and I think would it be right to say it's probably doing quite well in COVID as well, with people being at home and people needing some exercise equipment?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually, because the products that people can use to train with at home have done really well. Mm-hmm. And the products that people train with more in the gym haven't done quite so well, but now are starting to take off again because people are starting to develop better home gyms and such, and finding ways to train at home. So it's been an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's get into today's show. So you are going to talk about, basically, you've increased your sales on the branded version of the website. Obviously, that you're selling on Amazon, but in between selling on Amazon as well, when you launched your branded site, you found email to be a massive channel for you guys, about 30%. You also worked on Branded by Women, which we'll talk to about later, which was phenomenal on the open rates and stuff. But do you want to set the scene of what we're going to be talking about today on the show and why?
Sure, yes. So off Amazon, I sold 4-piece gear on my own website, built on the Shopify platform. And I found that email was the number one customer retention, customer acquisition method, really. And I think that email is the most undervalued and underused method of generating traffic and generating sales in e-commerce. A few years ago, when chatbots arrived, word on the street was email is dead. It's all about the chatbots now. Yeah. But that's absolutely not the case. Email remains, in my view, the number one most important marketing channel for e-commerce. And I used email to drive about 30% website revenue for my brand. Yeah. Sometimes more during particular campaigns.
And when did this all start? And should we talk through some of this? Because obviously there's things like automation, and we can get into all of those. But you use the Klaviyo platform, don't you?
Yeah, Klaviyo is my favorite platform. When I very first started, I was on MailChimp. People may or may not realize MailChimp and Shopify had a bit of a disagreement, and you can't use the two together now. But Klaviyo is by far the most powerful email marketing tool out there, purely because of the automation and how intelligent it can be for listening to your customers and gathering data about them, and then allowing you, even without very much technical know-how, to easily analyze that and understand it, to send your customers valuable information that's very specific to them. So it's not just an email marketing tool. It's like a customer relationship tool.
Yeah.
And it's built by very smart data scientists with far more brain cells than me, who build very clever algorithms to do all sorts of funky things. Like you can even predict when customers are likely to then make a next purchase, and you can then email them right before they're likely to purchase again to keep those leads warm. It's very, very clever.
So walk me through how you got started with it with B-Skill. You know, in terms of the simplest emails, obviously just follow up like cart bands and stuff like that. Walk through some of those before, and then we'll start talking through the more sophisticated stuff that you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So when I first started B-Skill's own website, I went with Shopify. I remember at the time I had a really simple website which I'd used. Do you remember the very first brand registry on Amazon when all you needed was a website? So some sort of off Amazon web page. You just needed to submit that to brand registry, and bingo, you had your brand was registered.
Yeah.
And at that time, I used a very simple WordPress site that I put together myself, and I'm not a developer, and used that to register for brand registry. And when it was time for me to have an off Amazon e-commerce site with an actual, checkout, I approached a developer and said, "Oh, I'd like you to build me an e-commerce site on WordPress, please." And thank God they talked me out of it and sent me through Shopify, because it's such a powerful platform. It's extremely customizable, and once your site is built, it's very easy to maintain. And even someone with no technical know-how on that side of things, such as me, can run it.
Yeah.
So within Shopify, I first got turned on to abandoned cart emails, for example, coming back to your question, because you can send abandoned cart emails in Shopify, which is great. And if nothing else, just turning those on is a massive no-brainer, low-hanging fruit, very easy to do. But I quickly learned, mostly through listening to podcasts, that there was so much more that I could be doing with all these email addresses I was getting. And so I realized I needed to use a specialized email marketing tool, because Shopify is great, but Shopify is the platform. It's not a specialized email marketing tool. And I went with MailChimp, but very quickly discovered it wasn't very, very powerful. And so I was turned on to Klaviyo through, I think, listening to a podcast. And in there, I discovered that they've set up all these flows, which you can then customize. And because of all the powerful triggers, filters, methods by which to collect data on your customers and then segment, it became very easy to do some really clever stuff.
Yeah. So let's go into some of the clever things you do, so let's just give an example. Let's take a jump rope or something for a beast gear. What is the natural setup of flow would from someone purchasing the rope until the end of the end of the customer cycle, if you like?
Sure. So somebody purchases. So you've mentioned they're a rope, but if they buy any product, they're going to immediately get into a welcome series. Yeah. And anyone with an e-commerce brand really needs to have a welcome series, because when a customer has just bought from you, that's when they're most likely to expect emails from you. They're going to be looking out for, maybe not consciously, right, but subconsciously, they're going to be, they're going to have the name of your brand in the back of their mind, and they're going to expect emails from you. Yeah. And so that's the time you can send the most emails. So you want to send them a welcome series, which is going to be a thank you email, thanking them for purchasing. Maybe you've promised them some user guide for their product, so you need to make sure that that's in there. And then you need to be providing value. It's become almost a cliche within e-commerce and digital marketing to talk about, giving value and, the Gary V jab, 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 right hook thing. But it's true, especially with email. So within that, first short time frame, just a few days, you want to be following up with value. So you could be sending articles or blog posts on how to use your product. Have you considered using your product in this other way that you may not have thought about? Then you want to be waiting for a while, because you don't want to be completely bombarding people. So once they're on a welcome list, you might want to think about, okay, this customer's bought a skipping rope, but what else can I sell them, right? You're in this to make money. So you would be segmenting your audience. It's all about segmentation. So in my case, I would have different segments depending on their category interest. So somebody might have bought a skipping rope. It's pretty safe to say that they're interested in conditioning, because it's a conditioning tool. So they would then enter flows for upselling conditioning products, or rather cross-selling. Yeah.
So give some examples of other stuff, because obviously you've put your brand out there anyway. So what other conditioning items would you sell, obviously, with the skipping rope as an example?
Yep. So somebody who's bought skipping rope might be training at home or training in the gym, but not going to be doing very much of that in the moment. They might want to do some core training, so I might sell them some core sliders. Alternatively, someone who's bought a skipping rope might be into boxing. So I would upsell them, cross-sell rather, boxing equipment. And just coming back into segmentation there for a second, a pretty nifty thing you can do is, and something I like to do, is to combine, I mentioned chatbots before and how email is not dead. That doesn't mean I don't like chatbots. I think chatbots are amazing. So what you could do is you would send somebody an email saying, hey, can you help me out with this? Give them an option of buttons to press. Which one are you most interested in? Boxing, conditioning, or strength training? They click the button. Clicking that button would update their profile within, in my case, Klaviyo, or whatever your email marketing tool of choice is. Suddenly, their profile, so Bob has just bought this skipping rope. He's just received an email asking what he's interested in. He's clicked on boxing. Now we know he likes boxing. So he's in the boxing list. And we will send him articles about boxing once a week. We'll only send him deals that are related to our boxing range. But at the same time, when he clicked that button, amazing things happen. A chatbot has opened. So in a Facebook Messenger window, he's just opened a chatbot. He's now subscribed to your chatbot, so you can market him there. And within the chatbot, you've tagged him with boxing. So when you have a flash sale on boxing stuff, you send him that within your chatbot. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. No,
but this would apply to any brand.
Yeah. So if we're going to just back up slightly, actually, let me say some hellos first to everyone in the feed and the people who've commented, and then we'll get to the next day. So Juan says, great job, Danny McMillan, for going strong for so many days. Juan, we did take a bit of a break last week. We got to 77 days in a row. Then I took a day off for Blackout Tuesday. So we observed that and came back on the Wednesday. But our shows are now running from Sunday till Thursday now. Sybe says, good afternoon, guys. Still flying high. Steve Hodgkins says, hello, Ben Leonard. Qasim is here. Hello, guys. Nick is here. He says, hey, guys, good to see you both. Hope the finger is okay, Ben. Do you want to show the audience what's going on? What have you done to your finger today?
I just about cut it off. I don't want to be too
gruesome. All right.
It was pretty gruesome. Basically, somebody we both know, Danny, very kindly sent me some very high-end knives, which are designed for very good chefs and not idiots like me.
Yeah.
So whilst cutting vegetables today for a curry, I thought it would be fun to include some of my finger in the curry.
Yeah.
So, but luckily,
you don't cut with your knuckles down like that. You cut with your hands out straight. Is that what it is?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the nurse down the local doctor's surgery did a cracking job, and I need to get the dressing changed on Wednesday. But there was a lot of blood. It was pretty gruesome. I'll send you some photos.
Lovely. I look forward to it. George is here. Owen Barrels is back. Ben Valance is back. Nanette is here. Don's here. Qasim, as we know. Michael, Richard Turnbull. Hey, Rich, long time no speak. Jason is back. Angel is here. Mark Steer. Jimmy is here. Sahal is here. Hope you're well, Sahal. Sean, how you doing, my friend? Hope you are well. Lord Dares is here. Giselle is here. Andreas is here. Michelle Clark is also with us. Got some... Dan Little, schoolboy error. So he's basically pulling you apart for making the error with the knives there. But we'll get Ben back later. Also, here is Nalia is here as well. So just going back to what we were going, if we would just back up a bit, we talk about the welcome flow of emails. Let's talk about a structure. Like normally, you use a mind map to work out what goes where. Like we did with Branded by Women. I think there was about 45 emails in total. Once you've got the paid flow, you've got the free flow, and then you've got the after event, and then you've got the personalized emails for the different speakers and stuff like that. But focusing on what you've done with your brand, so explain to people, what is the welcome email? Is it just like, hi, we're a small business, very, like the creepy emails that people send out on Amazon, just done. What do you put in there to get the brand across?
Yeah, so you know what, there is a little bit of hi, we're a small business, because it was true. When I was in charge, that was the case. But it's not really about that, because that everyone's onto that now, and it's a little bit slimy, isn't it? It's about appreciating the customer and showing genuine thanks for them, spending their money on something that you've produced on the internet. Introduce yourself, explain a bit about yourself and the brand, and it's about being real. People buy from real people.
Yes.
And they want to you to empathize with them, show empathy and understanding for the reason they bought for you. Because people buy products to solve a problem, right? And your product is hopefully providing a solution to that problem. So you're introducing yourself, you're introducing your brand, you're maybe saying a little bit about your brand and your brand, what your brand stands for, but without waffling on. And then just providing a reference point for them to get in touch with you. You don't necessarily need to write paragraphs and paragraphs. Even a few sentences will do. And you don't even necessarily need to send, an email that's full of very clever HTML or tons of images. Just something that's real. So my welcome email used to, be, hey Danny, thanks so much for purchasing from, my brand. Tell them a little bit about how I got into it, how the brand started, and let them know where I am if they need help. And that was it. And the number of replies I got to that from people just saying, wow, what a refreshing email to read, something original from a real person. That worked really well. There's no need to try and be clever about it. Far too many people, when they start a business, they start sending these emails that sound like they were written by a really boring corporate person, here at Acme Core, we stand for, blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, some of the tricks you use for branded by women, we got open rates between 68 and 72% because you personalize the email from some of the hosts. Like I hadn't seen open rates like that in a long time. And I know we're in the middle of COVID, but 25, 30% is generally good. But the open rates you were getting for branded by women was incredible, but it's very focused and dialed in. After the welcome email that you would send out, how much is in the flow that is transactional? So obviously you've just ordered, that's one. Then there's it's out for delivery. What is the flow of emails? What is the optimal amount that you found?
There's a fine balance to be struck here.
Yeah.
Because some people will tell you when somebody has just bought, that is when they're most likely to buy from you again. They've just had their credit card out.
Yeah.
And the receptiveness to buying again is pretty high. And that's true.
Yeah.
So, very often within your thank you email, you could provide an opportunity to buy again, as a thank you for buying, here's another 10% off, coupon expires in 2 days or something like that. That's fine. But then that's it. No more hard sell. Now it's time to provide value. This person has just spent their hard-earned money on your brand. It's time to give them the product that you've promised them, and then over-deliver on the value on the back end. So, looking at flow that I would do, I would send, your thank you email, introducing yourself about the brand, telling them a bit about your brand philosophy, which is something that I always like to talk about. Brand philosophy, what your brand is about. Then, I would not then ask for another sale and another good 4 or 5 emails in. And that could be over the course of several weeks, maybe up until the end of the month when it's payday. You don't want to be constantly badgering people, buy my stuff, because you'll end up...
Can I just interject there? Because you're absolutely right. I'll give you an example. There is, I bought some beard products off a site, like it's a drop shipper, basically. You on Insta or Facebook and you click through, you pay by PayPal. These fuckers are going to send it to you in about 2 months' time, but fuck it, you've done it anyway. The brand was called Grooming Gang. Unfortunately, that isn't really a nice name to use, and the afterthought of that landing in your inbox. So it was obviously someone who didn't really understand the English language when they named that. But I got 6 or 7 emails off them in 24 hours. In the end, I just had to unsubscribe because they were just going way over the top, trying to give me a discount code off this, and you're all on the way, and we're preparing, and our orders, we've got such a big backlog because of COVID. It stank. Do you know what I mean? It was like sickly. It's way over the top. And I think that's why you've got to get the balance, because there's a difference between getting the brand out and over to people and being scumbags, basically. There is, 100%. You've got to find that balance. Sorry, go on.
Yep. No, I just 100% agree. I do it all the time. I unsubscribe. But not only that, right? email email service providers, so your Google, your Yahoo, your Outlook, they're very clever, and they will either put you straight into the promotions or the social tab if your inbox is set up that way, or straight into clutter, or straight into spam. If you're providing value, and even better, providing value that encourages people to reply to your emails or forward on your emails, this is all sending positive signals, email juice, as I like to call it, to the email service providers, and encouraging them to make sure that you end up in the inbox. So all these companies that are just sending you spam are not gonna be in the inbox, and then their emails aren't going to get read, and then they're not going to get sales.
The other thing you do as well is we call it the ISP test, isn't it? It's like when we were sending mailers out to the audience for Branded by Women, because it was like daily shows and stuff, you would always respond to your test emails to send back to me, so it came back to the Branded by Women default email address, because obviously that's like a little signal, if you like, isn't it? I know it's very subtle, but that's another thing.
No, it all counts. So if people listening aren't quite sure what we're on about there, so I did the emails for Branded by Women. So when we were testing emails, an email would appear in my inbox because I was on the list from Danny, and I would reply to it, just saying anything like, "Hey, Danny," and that in itself is just one email address out of many thousands, but it's just adding a little bit of extra email juice, as I like to call it. So when you're testing things out, you can reply to your own emails to give positive signals to the internet service providers.
Cool. So so let's define then, once you've ordered a product, what do you think there is? Great, your order's completed, your order's being dispatched, your order will be with you in the next few days, so maybe 3. Is that your pre-order, would you say?
That's absolutely fine. What you would also want to be doing is providing useful information specific to what they've bought. So skipping rope example, user guide, training video, link to a YouTube demonstration video on how to adjust it. And then you want to cool off, give people a chance to use their product, enjoy it before you keep flying in, because for all you know, they might have a problem. So you definitely don't want to be annoying anyone who possibly has a problem. Hopefully they don't, because you've produced an excellent product. So you want to cool off a bit. Then what you would want to do is make sure that these people are in your more generic lists. So not necessarily your flows for post-purchase, but in your sort of evergreen flows, if you like, and in your main list that's getting your weekly email. You need to be emailing valuable content. I like once a week. Some people say once a fortnight. I like once a week. So people get used to seeing an email appearing from you once a week. So every week. So
just to interject there, like that's 52 weeks a year worth of content. So before we move on to further down the line, where we probably should address here is, where does the content come from? Do you have a content writer? Because that either you're doing it yourself, or that's quite a lot of work, isn't it? Especially when you've got a multitude of products. Is how do you cross-pollinate those and retain the interest of the person from not unsubscribing? Because if you've got 20 products in your store and you've only sold them the skipping rope, and 5 of your products are boxing and the other 5 are MMA and something else, the other 10 are something else, what do you do then to retain their interest by making sure you're sending the right information?
Exactly. So this is where segmentation comes in. So segmentation is really powerful these days. So, back in the day, you'd have somebody's name and you'd have their email address. You might have their IP and where they're from. You'd have their shipping address, obviously, but very little else. But now the email platforms like Klaviyo can pull in so much more data from your e-commerce site that you're able to segment your audience according to that data. So taking the skipping rope example, if I don't know anything else about them, they haven't clicked on my button in the email that says that they like boxing. Well, I know that they like conditioning equipment. So I know that they'll be potentially interested in articles or content relating to conditioning. So I wouldn't send them powerlifting articles, for example. They would go into an evergreen flow that receives an email once a week only on the topic that they're interested in. This prevents people from deleting, unsubscribing, sending an angry email, that type of thing. And that's really what it comes down to, is segmentation. So, segmentation these days is so powerful. You can target people depending not only on what they've bought. You can even target, if I really wanted to, I could target people on my website called Dave from Birmingham, and I could exclude anyone whose second name begins with an H. That would be stupidly specific with no real application, but that's just how specific you can get.
Yeah, makes sense. So staying on this quickly, content. How do you come up with the content strategy? Is it into a spreadsheet, separated by columns? I know you said evergreen content, so obviously you're not going to just take latest news stories and just necessarily new trends. You're going to take the old aged standards, wouldn't you? These top 5 things. So how do you break out this content and put that all together? And do you do it yourself? How long does it take? Or do you have a content writing team that's constant on it? Or you bring those third party in to do batch writing, for instance?
Yep. So when I started, I was writing articles all myself, and it was time consuming. My preference for my brand was purely articles. Video is absolutely fantastic. It brings a lot of value, but just, to go back into the context, I was a one-man band operating an e-commerce business, and any e-commerce business owner can tell you that it's damn busy. I didn't have time to be producing video content myself, and I didn't want to be spending money on outsourcing that at that time. No. So for me, it was all about blog content. But one blog article can go quite a long way, because you can take out the best snippets from that and then use them to produce valuable emails in themselves. So one 500-word article might then produce 3 emails. An alternative way of looking at it is simply to send one email, driving people to your article, because then you're driving people back to your site and keeping your brand top of mind. And while they're on your site, they may well purchase something related to that article. But your articles can't just be an excuse to try and sell something. You can't say to somebody, read this excellent article about deadlifts, and then the article is really just you're trying to sell, weightlifting straps. It's got to be providing real value.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about articles. Later on, as the brand scaled and I became more and more busy, I outsourced the writing of that. But these days, now that I'm no longer the brand owner, I write things myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, how long would you take to put something together, would you say? Like, how many articles you write in the batch, and do you sit down and knock out 3 or 4 articles a day for 3 or 4 days, so you batch putting them together as a batch? Or
I could knock out 3 or 4 500-worders. And sometimes you'd be working at several at the same time, over the period of a few days, and then come back to them and refine them, make sure that they're good quality. It's very easy to knock something out in a few hours, but it might be rubbish. So you need to go back through it and make sure that it's good.
Yeah. Cool. That sounds good. The other thing with regards to going back to segmentation and like the deliverables of the email. So first things first, some of the things that we did and people should be aware of is when someone doesn't open a mail, and the opportunity to resend them in a period of time so that you get a second shot at getting them to open. Do you want to explain what you do there in terms of that?
Yeah, so a strategy I really like is, so everybody knows that your inbox gets pretty clogged. You've subscribed to so many things and you've forgotten to unsubscribe and that type of thing. And it's very easy to miss an email. And just because somebody hasn't opened your email doesn't mean that they didn't want to open it, or they wouldn't find it valuable. They just didn't see it, or they saw it and they thought, I'll open that later. Yeah. And then they didn't. Yeah. So what I like to do is resend the same email the next day, usually with a different subject line, but only to the people who didn't open it the first time. Yeah. You don't want to send it to everyone again, because that is spamming, and that's annoying, and that's not cool. Yeah. So that is a strategy I like to do, and it always results in a nice little uplift of open rates, and makes sure that more people who would find that email valuable, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to offer valuable content to your subscribers. And it makes sure that more people who would find that useful get the opportunity to open it. Yeah.
What other things should people be looking into, like in terms of the cart abandonment? Do you have a flow that's built for that as well? Not just a single email, like there's the discount, and what do you do on follow up? Do you want to walk through those as well?
Yep. So cart abandonment is one where it's very easy to be too over the top and too spammy. So it's about finding the right balance. I like to send 3 emails. I like to send one after an hour, one after 24 hours, and one after 48 hours. The one after an hour, I usually send with very little branding, well, no branding, and it's written as if I was writing an email to you in Gmail.
Yeah.
And it pretty much just says, hey, looks like you forgot to finish your order, or maybe you have some questions. Just reply to this email. Let me know if I can help you out, and click here to return to your order.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody, the phone rang, or they had to rush off from their computer for some reason, or their phone, and they couldn't complete the order. Then the second email, a day later, is a little bit more branded, a little bit more. There's gonna be a little bit more FOMO in there, a little bit more urgency, offering them a discount. And the third email is basically saying your discount's going to expire. If you still want this stuff, you got to do it before midnight tonight.
Yeah,
that works really well. You get, you can get high open rates if your subject lines are good, and that type of flow is responsible for a lot of revenue. And anyone who doesn't have cart abandonment emails set up on their site, even using the generic ones that your platform, Shopify or WooCommerce provides, you need to get them set up, because it's just it's a set and forget. It's so easy.
And so what about when it comes to being a bit more technical now, in terms, you mentioned integrating with chatbots, but what about creating audiences for Facebook ads? But it's a live feed. So as it grows, you're serving more and more of these ads. Explain what you can do there as well.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So let's take the email abandonment one, right?
Yeah.
So your email provider, in my case, Klaviyo, or as I like to call it, a customer relationship tool, because that's really what it is, will have a dynamic segment of people who've abandoned the checkout. So if somebody might have abandoned the checkout and then placed an order the next day, now they're going to leave your dynamic segment because they're no longer a checkout abandoner, because they bought, right?
Yeah.
You can integrate Klaviyo with Facebook to have a dynamic audience of checkout abandoners and serve them adverts which are essentially very similar to your abandoned cart emails, only they're in Facebook ad forms. You're reminding the person, hey, did you leave something behind? Use code, Seller Sessions 10 to get 10% off. You're reminding them that they've placed that order. Maybe add a little bit of urgency in there, a bit of FOMO. And those work. The best Facebook, I'm not a specific Facebook ads guy, but the best Facebook ads are the ones that are going to highly qualified, highly relevant people who are very likely to buy from you. And it doesn't really get much better than people who've added something to the cart, been to the checkout, put in their email address, but just haven't quite clicked the buy button.
Yeah, that makes sense. What other more advanced techniques would you suggest to do? Yeah.
Coming off of that, once they are a customer, of course, you can then serve those people adverts.
Yeah.
You can segment them according to how much they've bought. So you would have high value segments and low value segments. You'd run different adverts at them with different budgets accordingly. You could create lookalike audiences off them. So the more people you have in your email list, the more reliable your lookalike audience is then going to become. The Facebook targeting is very powerful these days, and it's all very well going into your Facebook Ads Manager or your audience builder and choosing attributes, but when you can just create an audience specifically looking like people who have bought from you, and then drive adverts at them, even specifically for not just for your brand but for specific products, that's when it becomes very, very clever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, look, let's wrap this shortly. But there was actually a question here from Juan. It says, what's the best day of the week to email and at what time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer to that, I'm afraid, is it depends. It depends on your audience. It depends on what you're selling. If you're, for example, say you have a brand which sells to busy stay-at-home mums. You wouldn't want to be emailing them at tea time, because at tea time, they're very busy getting tea ready for their kids. But you might be okay emailing them, say, at lunchtime when they're at home, but the kids are at school. Well, not now because it's lockdown, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, you might have a brand which is just targeting, take my fitness brand, right? You're targeting probably people with a decent amount of disposable income, age between 20 and 40. I used to like to email them when they were bored at work in the afternoon. But it's also important to remember that unlike a notification on your phone, people check their emails and then they scroll down and they're checking their emails. So even if you emailed them 3 hours ago, they're still going to open it. And if they don't open it, remember, you can send them it again with a different subject line, which is something I like to do.
Yeah.
Once you have a very big list, some of the email service providers have clever algorithms that will actually determine the optimum opening times for your specific emails. And they will send your emails dynamically, depending on the optimum opening time for your segments, which is really, really smart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cybe's got a question here. Can you outsource all of these tasks, and to who?
Absolutely. Outsourcing is what you need to do to scale your brand. There comes a point where you become the bottleneck and you can only make progress if you're working on your business rather than in your business. Of course, you need to make sure that the people doing this are well trained and can provide good quality. So, for example,
a specialist in email automation, and then find out what kind of platforms that they use. You can get them on different, obviously, sites like FreeUp and everything else, can't you?
Yeah. So some tasks you could teach to a VA. So suppose you've written some content, you could teach your VA how to send an email to your list, telling them about that content. That's very easy to do. Yeah. In terms of the more complex stuff like building out your automations, you'd want to make sure you're giving that to an experienced, either an agency or an individual person.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Anything you'd like to add before we go? And obviously, how can people reach you if they want to speak to you? Because ultimately, you exited last year, right? So you got the legacy money, you put it in the bank, etc. But you're on to your next thing. So let's quickly talk about that. Is anything that you can reveal what you want to now?
Yeah, I can tell you a couple of things. I'm working on a new brand. It's not fitness. I'm working with a partner. I can't reveal too much about it yet. It's in progress, but it will be ready hopefully late 2020. Yeah, pretty excited about it. We're working on prototypes at the moment. The other thing I'm doing is I'm helping people as an e-commerce consultant, really. I've learned a lot over the last 3 to 4 years. And, if I was Marty McFly, I would have wanted to be able to travel forward and ask myself all the things that I've learned over the last few years. Yeah. So I'm helping people with an e-commerce mentorship program. I'm doing some email automation, done for you email automation. And I'm selling some sort of useful digital products related to e-commerce. Cool. And you can get me for those at www.benleonard.pro. I'm on Twitter, Ben Leonard Pro. I've got very few followers, so please give me a follow. Facebook, Ben Leonard Pro. And I'm on LinkedIn. Just search for me and give me a shout and I'll connect with you on there.
Sounds good. Ben, thank you for joining us today. Guys, thank you for joining us. We'll be back here 4 p.m. BST tomorrow. Stay home, stay safe, take care. See you then.
Thanks, Danny.